Hi, my name is Adrienne. I'm a special education teacher in Minnesota, and I'm going to be going over helping your child with autism spectrum disorder and similar needs learn at home during COVID-19. Today, I'm going to be sharing 5 different strategies that were developed by autism leaders and teachers in Minnesota to help parents feel less stressed by this enormous task of having your child learn at home. This information is intended for parents and caregivers of students with special needs to assist during this time of school closure. We know that this is a time of great change and stress for families, and we're hoping that some of these tips and tricks will help decrease some of those anxieties for you and for your child. If you're finding it too difficult, you should reach out to your child's special education teacher and let them know so they can provide other learning material or other strategies. Some wise words from teachers. As special educators, a lot of what we do is making sure that we have everything set up and ready to go ahead of time. This is especially important for our students that may have interfering behaviors, attention difficulties, and other learning barriers. We as teachers have learned the hard way, and I know some of you parents have already been engaged in distance learning for a week or so, but I'm hoping that you can incorporate some of the strategies that we're about to go over so that you won't have to learn the hard way like we did. So here are the 5 different strategies that I'm going to go over the next several slides. Setting up the environment. I'm going to go over setting up the home environment for learning in 4 easy steps. First of all, let's take a look at setting up a work environment in your home. So when you're doing this, the work area should be free of distractions, both visual and noise, and as neat and orderly as possible. When you think about setting this up, you're going to want to have 2 different spaces. So the first space will be where we get work done. So this is the examples that I'm about to show. Also, make sure that you have a place for play or choice or breaks so that your child knows that when they're in their work area, it's time to get to work. Let's go over some of these examples. So in this first one here, you'll see that they have set up a card table, and on the left-hand side here, they've placed the work that needs to be completed. The child will then work in this space and put completed work to be checked here. When the work is all done, they have kind of a discard bin here for the child to indicate that they are all done or finished with the work. This next example over here has a desk with 2 bookcases next to it. And on the left-hand side here, you'll see these bins where you could put work that needs to be completed. Then the child can complete the work on the desk and put the completed work on the file cabinet or on the shelf to the right. Here's another example of a work area that is set up just at a kitchen table. So first, this is kind of the least scaffold and maybe this is all your child needs, where every day when it's time to do schoolwork, they go to the same spot at the kitchen table and this is where they complete their work. Another added layer is you could incorporate a placemat, or here is just a piece of green construction paper that will indicate this is my spot where I do my schoolwork. This next added support here is a visual barrier. So this is just a folded piece of cardboard so that if there's any visual distractions in the room, this might decrease those distractions and get the child to focus on the work at hand. Here's a couple more examples of setting up the work area. So this family has a rug on the floor, or as coined by another special education teacher, the magic carpet, for the child to have as their work area. So this is just trays. You could use paper plates or just any paper that you might have, where they wrote read and done with the work to be completed here and a spot for the child to place the completed work. Another idea here is just flipping over a laundry basket as a workspace for the child. We're all getting creative in these COVID-19 work from home scenarios. True story. One of my sacred workspaces is a closet. Okay, so after you have your work area picked out, you want to make sure that you have all the material gathered for that work session before your child even sits down at the table. So you could have it set up with the possible work tasks. You could use, here's just cardboard boxes that have been cut down. So I even thought maybe you could use cereal boxes or anything where you could have the work to be completed, a work area, and then a spot to put completed work. Another easy solution could be using folders as a to-do or done. Also, you are not alone in this. So make sure you're getting the work from your child's teacher. So this could be any of the support teachers that your child works with. So you have a team that is on your side in this distance learning. Use your resources and reach out if things aren't working. Lastly, we want to ensure that everything that is being presented to your child is doable and doesn't get to their frustration level, especially as you're setting up this kind of work routine in the home. I would even suggest the first couple times that you set up this work area, have it be really preferred tasks, really preferred academic tasks that they could complete, something that's really satisfying for them. But here's just a couple examples of some work that you could do, even like pre-work you could do before you add in any demanding tasks. So color sorts, you could use socks to match, sorting different coins. Here you even just putting on lids, or using muffin tins to sort things in different ways. Well, there you go. So you have set up the environment for success for your child. Let's move on and talk about creating some visuals. Let's jump into using visuals, creating schedules and cues during distance learning. In this section, we're going to talk about some practical ideas that you can incorporate that will help answer some of these questions that your child is likely thinking about the second they sit down to get to work. We all do better when we know what's coming next in our day and where it falls in relationship to the things that we want to be doing. I love this little saying on the left here. Not only will visuals help your child, but they will also help you. It's the most useful tool in the special education classroom because it's a simple, convenient alternative to repeating yourself all day. I'm going to talk about 3 different types of visuals for today. So we're going to go over some daily schedules, some schedules within the work session, and visual supports for the work session. Here are 3 examples of some daily schedules, and a couple things I wanted to point out here is notice that each one has built-in gross motor activity, choice, and breaks. Try to think of it as sandwiching the academic activities, the rigorous activities, with a preferred activity in the middle. Also, consider doing a half day rather than just plowing through a whole day schedule. Maybe you start with even just 3 activities and then the next 3 and the next 3. Lastly, these things do not need to be pretty. Just figure out what works for you and your family. If your student is a pre-reader, you might want to try and incorporate a couple sketches. Or if you have access to a printer, type out and print some of these things. If you do a quick Google search, you might be able to find some pictures to add for some details. As I was saying, in your daily schedules, try to incorporate sensory breaks. You may want to have a sensory menu or some choices that you have within your house. And just a couple minutes for every 15 minutes of work, and maybe more depending on your child. You could use a visual timer. This is really helpful to put a start and end time to both work and choice and sensory breaks. Most cell phones have a built in visual timer, or you could use a kitchen timer or even just the timer on your stovetop if you have one. As much as possible, try to include choice for the things that your child likes. Make sure that we have some of the fun things that follow the hardest things on the schedule. We are back to our workstation at the kitchen table, and I'm just going to highlight a couple more scaffolds that you can incorporate. Here is a first, then, so first math work, then choice. Next, this is a way that you could simplify the work. This sheet has just been folded in half, and the family drew lines in between each one of the problems with a box for the child to put their answer. You could simplify it even further by folding it one more time. So this has now gone from 20 problems to 5 problems. And lastly, you could add a duration chart. So this is just 5 boxes for the child to cross off as they complete each one of the problems so they know exactly when they're going to earn the thing that they're working for. Here's another way just to add some visual supports within the work session. So you could have a star chart. So this could look a lot like that duration chart where there's boxes, and the child gets a token whenever they complete something. So they do a problem, they get a token. They complete a task in a workbox, they get a token. And this keeps them motivated for what they're working for. Here's another example of adding visual supports within the work session. Maybe you could write out, or they could write out the things that they're going to do for within the work session. And this also incorporates choice. And then when they are done, they take it from the to do and put it in the done. Showing change visually. So, as much as we have everything planned out for the day, we know that changes will arise. So, having a plan and being consistent will really help your child accept those changes. So, for example, this family has chosen that they're going to cross out anytime there is a change and then indicate what is happening instead. It would be helpful to go over this with your child so they can accept the change when it comes time. A schedule within a work session. So, breaking tasks down into smaller chunks is very helpful for our students on the autism spectrum. So, on their schedule, it might say reading, and you can break down that task by chunking it out into a sequential way of completing that task. So, in this example, first read pages 1 through 5, then draw a person, do a puzzle that's related, and then you get Thomas the Train for 5 minutes. Many students love to check off their work as they're finished, so having a task list can be very satisfying for them too. Even for your child who is fairly independent, breaking down a work session or helping them try and create a process for completing their work could be very helpful. Lastly, for visuals, we just wanted to go over a couple options for using visuals to help your child handle emotions. I would actually recommend starting by reaching out to your child's special education teacher to find out the language that they're using in the special ed classroom so you're not reinventing the wheel and you're staying consistent with something that your child already knows. But just highlighting a couple examples here. This is adopted from the 5-point scale, the incredible 5-point scale, and starting with a 1 or a green, I can handle this, I'm good to go, up to a red where I need a break. I need to get out of this situation. Also, having some choices available. It doesn't need to look this fancy. You could just have a couple different choices: getting a drink, taking a walk, counting to 10, taking deep breaths. A couple choices for your child to have access to if they are feeling frustrated. And lastly, make sure that you are celebrating successes. Start small. Any small of work is an accomplishment, and you should celebrate all those successes. The more you celebrate the small successes, the more likely your child is to engage the next time. Using your child's interests and reinforcers. We're going to talk about two different ways to use your child's interests and preferences. So, the first way is to have them work towards their preferred item, task, or activity. And then also incorporating the things that they are interested in to the lessons that your teacher is sending you. So, how do we figure out how to get your child to engage in learning if they're not motivated to sit down and work? Well, we have them work towards their preferred activities and things that are highly motivating for them. So, much like we went over in visuals, we have them first complete the work, then get reinforced. Another way to increase their interest in a learning activity is to incorporate the things that they're interested in into the activity itself. So, for example, if you are working on a math activity and you need to use counters, use monster trucks if that's their favorite item. Or if they love to read, do more reading activities. Something as simple as if their favorite color is red, allowing them to use a red marker or a red pen might be motivation enough to get them to engage in the learning. How to know what your child's reinforcers are. You could ask them, you could notice the things that they talk about or play with or engaged with or excited about the most. You could try introducing new things and see what they like. And have them choose. So if you lay out different options, it could be the actual objects or pictures of things, and let them decide what they want to work for. Your child may benefit from some prompting and modeling. Here is a couple examples. So, when we think about prompting, there are a couple different reasons why your child may benefit from a prompt. It could be that they have a skill, but they have difficulty initiating a task or knowing when to use that skill, or that they haven't acquired the skill very well yet. The key to prompting is just figuring out where that sweet spot is, knowing when to jump in to prompt your child, or knowing when to back off and kind of let them struggle through it themselves and that at kind of independent level. So it's finding that area in between, because we also don't want our children to get to their level of frustration. So just maybe noticing when your child might be starting to become triggered or frustrated in the situation, then you'll want to jump in with a prompt. Here's different ways of thinking about the levels of prompts. So from independent to a full physical prompt. When we think about a full physical prompt, it could be like a hand over hand, where you are placing your hand over your child's hand to grasp an object and move it to another location, or something where you are putting your hands on your child to help them through a process. The ultimate goal for all of our kids is independence. So, again, it's knowing when to jump in and when to allow them to work through it themselves. Modeling is just showing them how to do it first. I often say, like, my turn, then your turn, my turn, your turn, and show the children how to complete a task. This teaches skills and increases independence. You could also model just by completing a project beforehand, so have a completed example done so they can see what it looks like once the product is complete. Okay, let's jump into troubleshooting and reducing behaviors. So, this is kind of just reviewing a lot of the strategies that we've already talked about. So, letting your child pick the order of the tasks and the rewards, ignoring some off task behaviors or redirecting to a task. Even better if you can just use a visual to do this and not have to do a verbal redirect. Make things more successful by reducing the amount of work, like we talked about. You can always add more later. And then offering those really preferred tasks after the hardest tasks to increase motivation. Finally, I just want to put in a plug for all of you parents who are out there doing the best you can in these super hard times. So give yourself credit, praise yourself and your child for all the hard work you both are doing, you all are doing. Also, playing together, being together, trying to find fun in your day is just as important as the academic tasks that your teacher is providing. So make sure that you're valuing that as well. Next, I'm just going to be showing some resources and contacts for autism spectrum disorder resources in Minnesota. Here are some resources for COVID-19 specific information for students and children with autism spectrum disorder. Here's the contact information for the Minnesota Autism Spectrum Disorder Low Incidence Project. Here are the facilitators and their contact information in different regions throughout Minnesota. And lastly, the contact information for Minnesota State Specialist at the Department of Ed and the Minnesota Low Incidence Project. Thank you so much for listening and learning with me. I hope you found it useful. Take care.